Welcome to our presentation. We are coming from Slovenia to share with you an amazing story of a writer, essayist, publicist, and poet, Zorko Simčič. His family originates from Istra and Bela Krajina, with some members from Goriška Brda. But when the Italians occupied Goriška Brda, his family was forced to move to Maribor, where he was born. He was born in 1921, on the November 19, into a family of 4 members. Beside his mom and dad, he also met for the first time with his 2 older brothers, Mirko and Darko. He also had an older sister, but she died at a very young age, so he actually never met her. Zorko got along well with his father, and he was actually the one who inspired him and showed him the literature. He was often listening to him reciting poems and telling him things about life.
At the age of 14, Zorko published his first story, a fairy tale about an emperor and the empress, in Slovenec, at that time a big newspaper. After he finished primary school, he went to a classical gymnasium, which was a really good school at that time. After completing it, he went to a teacher's college, where he graduated as one of the top students. In April 1941, during the Palm Sunday Mass, the news spread that the Germans had attacked Slovenia. Zorko and his friends immediately enlisted as volunteers for the army. Zorko told his family that he will be home in just 2 or 3 days, enough to push the Germans back, but he did not return back for 52 years. After the disintegration of Yugoslav army, he continued his studies in Ljubljana, but in 1942 there were massive purges and raids in Ljubljana, and Simčič was among the captured.
They led him and others to the goners' camp. They stayed here for months, starving. Due to weak health, they decided to release him. At the height of 180 centimeters, he was weighing only 49 kilograms. He then returned to Ljubljana, where his parents were currently living. But they did not recognize him because he had changed so much in the last half a year. He got bad news. His brother was killed by the communist organization, and the other one was also killed by them 4 years later. After his release from the goners' camp, concentration camp, Zorko Simčič served as a personal secretary to Narte Velikonja at Zimska Pomoč, a charitable organization that provided aid to war refugees. In 1944, he was also one of the main editors of Zbornik of Zimske Pomoči, a bibliographical publication that included literary and essayistic and scientific contributions from many writers. This role would have placed Simčič at the heart of Slovenian cultural and intellectual efforts during the Second World War. When the Soviet army and the Yugoslav partisans occupied Slovenia, he decided to run to Austria. He stayed in Austria for 1 year, then he ran to Rome. There he received monthly food as a refugee in boxes. He found himself a job. He became an elevator boy, so he was helping guests at the hotel. This way, he also heard many stories and saw many people, so that also inspired him to write many stories.
At the invitation of Professor Jože Peterlin, he went to Trieste in late 1946. There, he worked at a radio station called Radio Trieste, which was controlled by the Allies, so they could speak Slovenian and Italian language. Around that time, he also met his parents for the last time. They organized a meeting in the middle of the night with the border of Slovenia, so he could meet his mom and dad for the last time. He received a notice that his Yugoslav citizenship has been revoked because he opposed communists And we also got the information that the UDBA, the secret agency, has a file on him around 30 pages long, which was later destroyed. At that time, Zorko comments, "I wanted to leave Italy by any means necessary. I was terrified. In Rome, I had once attended a communist mass rally. It was something terrible. The waving of communist flags, the shouting, threats. Togliatti was speaking, the leader of the Italian party, at the time the strongest communist party in Europe. It was as if I had found myself in a crowd of religiously insane people."
So he decided to run away from this totalitarian system. He got on a ship, very old ship, and he ran to Argentina. He was deadly ill. Doctors said he wouldn't survive to the equator, but he did and successfully traveled to Argentina. Voice?
Politika, prihajaš Ljubljano, Trst, pa Rim, ampak priješ kar nekaj celo, mislim, da je takrat imelo 8 milijonov prebivalcev, ne? Pa da ne znaš jezika, je en tak čuden občutek, ampak je tako, kot pravijo, te vrže v vodo in začneš plavati. Ni druge poti, ne? In se počasi vživljaš.
So yes, this was him speaking about his coming to Argentina. He ended working in a carpentry shop, but he knew this wasn't for him, so he searched and searched, and then finally he got a job at a very well-known company called Radio Corporation of America. He stayed at this job for over a decade. During this time, he began to meet with other Slovenians. He started to actively participate in the community, organizing many events like Sunday Slovenian Mass or Saturday Slovenian School. After 10 years, he quit the job and he was more focusing on himself. He wrote more books and songs, and yes. For next 20 years, he was also selling his own made souvenirs under the Tronador volcano in Argentina. In the middle of 60s, his parents died, but he was unable to go home because he was terrified that they would kill him. He never visited his parents' grave. In a new life that was given to Zorko, he managed to find time for himself and show what he is really capable of doing. It was a time of great creative work. He had a chance to show off his real skills, unlike the communist regime where every strong opinion is strictly forbidden. He was also among the founders of the Slovenian Cultural Action, in 1954, the Slovenian-Argentinian Miracle.
Together with his like-minded thinkers, he built and maintained the Slovenian community, which arouses great admiration. In 1957, he finished a book called Men on the Both Sides of the Wall, which is the first Slovenian existential themed book. All of his books were strictly forbidden by the communists. As Slovenia gained independence, he came back for a visit with his wife and 2 daughters in 1993. He decided he wants to move back to Slovenia, regardless all the horrors that happened to him during World War II. They finally moved back in 1994. In Argentina, he was one of the few organizers of the events in the Slovenian community and one of the co-founders of the Slovenian Cultural Action. For the first 12 years, he was the editor of the Central Emigrant magazine called Med Tobija, where he kept in touch with 110 Slovenian intellectuals all over the world. He established himself as one of the most important contemporary writers in Slovenia from the wartime. He wrote 30 novels, more selections of poems, selections of prose and essays, and countless articles. For his life work, he received the Prešeren Award, the highest literary award in Slovenia, and he is also a full member of the Academy for Science and Art. And for a fun fact, his birthday is in 4 days, on the 19th of November, and he will be 102 years old.